the story's about oil. And you hear this from conspiracy theorists and people who are, everything that happens in the Middle East, everything Britain and America do is about oil.
But it's actually true.
But it's actually, in this case,
right.
It's true. In lots of other cases, like the war in Iraq, it's not really true. But here it really is. Iran had always had a strategic role, where it is in the Middle East. It'd been part of that kind of great game for influence between Russia and Britain in the 19th century. But in the 20th century, oil becomes much more important. And Iran has got tons of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Abadan, this key site in Iran, becomes the largest oil refinery in the world. And it is run by the Anglo-Iranian or Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which is now BP. And it's a huge facility and a really important facility, both to the company and to the country, to the UK.
And it's producing essentially the entirety of the Royal Navy's oil needs.
Yeah.
And providing it at a discount. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Churchill had this great line where when he was talking about Iran, he called it, and specifically its oil, a prize from fairyland beyond our wildest dreams, right? So it's immense strategic importance.
Yeah, and it's supposedly shared with the Iranians, but the Iranians
But not really.
But not really. The
Right.
Iranians don't get to see the books about where the money is going. A lot of it goes to the treasury, a lot of it goes to the company. It's also a kind of colonial enterprise.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw some videos from, I think, the period of the 40s and 50s, and the expat Brits are in swimming pools and living this lovely life, and they're trying to encourage people to go out there. And meanwhile, the Iranian workers are kind of working in mud huts and living in mud huts and working in pretty terrible conditions. So it is not a happy place for Iran to see its wealth basically going over to Britain. So by the time you get to the early 50s, the pressure within Iran to do something about this is growing. It comes to a head because the oil company is not really willing to change its terms. It's not really willing to compromise about what it gives. I mean, the Foreign Office aren't very happy with the oil company. They call the boss of it a complete totalitarian because he's so unwilling to compromise. As the pressure builds, you get a key moment, 1951, with a new leader in Iran who's pushing for nationalization of oil.
I mean, he's sort of drafting off of this energy coming off of the Second World War for sort of, throwing off the colonial shackles, right? I mean, there's nationalism throughout the entire region is really on the rise. So this guy, Mossadegh, I mean, where does he kind of come from? What's his position in Iran?
Well, by this point, he's already getting on a bit. He was born in 1882. So he's quite an elderly aristocratic figure, well-educated, educated in Europe, tall, slumped shoulders, hangdog face. But he was a politician who could also be a kind of passionate speaker, a passionate nationalist, pushing for Iran to take control of the oil. The Brits hate him. They see him as a kind of cunning, slippery figure, and
he hates the British too, doesn't he?
He really hates the British.
Really hates the British.
Yeah, and so it's mutual. And I mean, the Brits kind of say he's always ill, and when people go to meet him, he's in bed in his pajamas. So he's a pajama-clad weeper, as someone puts it. So they portray him as this kind of populist, revolutionary. I mean, on the other hand, he's also romanticized by his supporters as this kind of great liberal democratic figure. And I think he's a bit more complicated than that.
The CIA documents actually refer to him from back then, refer to him as an impractical visionary and poor administrator.
Okay.
Among all the redactions, they left that one unredacted. So there's
that's what they think.
Solidly negative view of the man coming out of Washington and London.
But he becomes prime minister in 1951 at the point where oil is going to be nationalized. So they're taking over the company. And
he's man of the year.
He's Time Magazine
man of the year.
So it's really interesting. The Americans he quite likes the Americans. The Americans kind of quite like him.
What's not to like? Yeah, that's right.
But they describe him as a kind of George Washington figure. So he's partly seen in America as this kind of nationalist figure who's throwing off the colonial shackles. But in Britain, it's fair to say, they've got a problem with him.